While visiting a library in the suburbs of Chicago, my attention was drawn to a thick book titled the Urantia Book. It was the largest book on the entire shelf, spanning approximately 2,000 pages. As I quickly flipped through its pages, I noticed it was filled with numerous scientific and religious terms. Interestingly, the author was not listed. It turns out that the Urantia Book contains documents presented as the fifth epochal revelation, according to the anonymous authors. The book offers a detailed description of the structure of the universe, covering topics such as humanity, the divine, and the life of Jesus Christ. It explores the destiny of mankind, teaching that faith is essential for spiritual progress and eternal survival. Additionally, it outlines God's plan for the progressive evolution of human society and the universe as a whole. In this text, Urantia refers to our planet Earth. The authors of the Urantia Book remain unknown. The book was first published in Chicago in the year 1955, though its main text is believed to have been written as early as 1934. Authorship is often attributed to an unidentified patient of the American psychiatrist William Sadler. According to Sadler's accounts, this patient would occasionally enter a peculiar sleep state, during which he purportedly spoke on behalf of various supernatural beings. Upon waking, the patient retained no memory of these episodes, and his identity was never revealed. The process by which the Urantia Book was completed between 1934 and 1955 remains a mystery. The book later became the cornerstone of an esoteric movement influenced by the theosophical ideas of Russian religious philosopher Helena Blavatsky. The text claims to be a collection of revelations received from celestial beings. It encompasses an extensive range of information on topics such as the structure of the universe, astronomy, physics, and chemistry. Based on the content, it is speculated that a group of well-educated enthusiasts, knowledgeable in various scientific disciplines, was involved in its creation. These individuals would have had to rely on typewriters, as computers were not yet available. Most remarkably, they would have needed to maintain complete secrecy about their efforts for the rest of their lives. How does the knowledge about the world conveyed to us by celestial beings in the Urantia Book compare to what we know today? It turns out these beings didn't reveal anything groundbreaking. Most of the information they provided was already known or speculated before 1950s. For instance, one might expect the book to include insights into the structure of subatomic particles, such as protons, the building blocks of atomic nuclei. Today, protons are accelerated in experiments at the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. The term proton, derived from the Greek word for first, was introduced by Ernest Rutherford in 1920 to describe the hydrogen nucleus. While the Urantia Book mentions protons multiple times, these particles had already been discovered before the book was written. Crucially, the text offers no information about the internal structure of protons. This omission is unsurprising if the book was authored by humans in the 1930s. However, if it was truly dictated by cosmic beings, one would expect them to provide precise knowledge about the composition of protons. As we know today, protons consist of three quarks, point-like, structureless particles held together by gluons. Additionally, the proton contains a sea of quark-antiquark pairs and gluons. Quarks and gluons cannot exist independently due to a phenomenon called confinement, which prevents quarks from being observed outside of particles like protons. This understanding only emerged in the 1970s, well after the Urantia Book was completed. Looking back, now we understand that the facts in the book generally may reflect the science of 1930s. Nonetheless, it contains information that could be regarded as predictions. It turned out that there are modern scientists who have attempted to compare the descriptions of the universe from the Urantia Book with the current knowledge. The book contains 31 predictions on various scientific topics. About 48% of the predictions align with the modern science. This is quite an interesting observation. Nevertheless, we would have expected more insight from celestial beings. Consider this: if an undiscovered method truly exists to obtain new information from a higher source, such a channel would inevitably be filled with noise that distracts from or obscures useful messages. This uncertainty serves an essential purpose. It allows room for doubt about the contents of the book and provides ample opportunities for critique. This ambiguity may act as a safeguard for preserving our free will and our motivation to pursue scientific discovery. Indeed, imagine a scenario where the Urantia Book had predicted, with the 100% accuracy, all the natural laws that humanity would discover by today. Such an outcome would likely paralyze scientific progress. Instead of educating students or investing in research, society might simply seek out individuals with similar symptoms to those described by William Sadler, hoping to extract further information about the universe. Why bother with the painstaking process of science and discovery? Most importantly, such a scenario would drastically limit our freedom and creativity. The existence of an infallible source of knowledge would constrain the human imagination and stifle the exploration of new possibilities. True progress thrives on uncertainty and the human drive to uncover the unknown. If all the scientific facts in the Urantia book were fully confirmed, it would imply that its spiritual and religious claims must also be entirely accurate. In truth, the real value of the book lies in its spiritual and philosophical guidance. It affirms the existence of God, outlines the purpose of humanity, and presents an extensive biography of Jesus Christ, offering detailed interpretations of his teachings. Such a scenario would suggest that Christianity is the only true religion, as the Urantia book frames Jesus' teachings as the ultimate spiritual truth. This perspective implies that humanity's sole responsibility would be to live according to these teachings. However, this assertion would effectively invalidate all other religions, traditions that have developed their own unique paths to understanding God, shaped by their distinct historical and cultural contexts. Even if this entire book wasn't written under the dictation of cosmic beings, the people who wrote it must have been under some psychological influence. After all, not everyone would undertake the task of creating 2,000 pages of complex text without genuinely believing in what they were writing. Could it be that some true and precise knowledge found its way into the minds of the book's authors? And not just precise, its emergence would have to be highly improbable for the 1930s. It turns out that the book indeed contains a few scientific predictions. For instance, it talks about dark islands of space, which will soon be discovered by humans. Chapter 173, Burned Out Suns. Some of the dark islands of space are burned out isolated suns, all available space energy having been emitted. It requires ages upon ages for such enormous masses of highly condensed matter to be recharged in the circuits of space, and thus to be prepared for new cycles of universe function. This description matches what we understand as black holes today. These are regions of space where a huge amount of mass is packed into a tiny volume. This creates a gravitational pull so strong that not even light can escape it. Mostly they are formed by the collapse of giant stars. Even before the Urantia book was written, Albert Einstein had completed his work on the theory of gravity, within which the German astronomer Karl Schwarzschild in 1916 calculated the properties of space and time inside and outside a collapsing star. Only in 1967, a theoretical physicist, John Wheeler, described the properties of black holes, using this term in science for the first time. In 2015, physicists discovered gravitational waves and concluded that they were generated by two black holes in the final seconds of their merger to form a more massive black hole. This observation definitively confirmed the existence of these objects. However, it's worth noting that candidates for black holes were observed as early as the early 1970s. Here is another interesting fact. In physics, there is a particle named neutrino, which participates in weak interactions with matter. The neutrino was first proposed by Austrian-Swiss physicist Wolfgang Pauli. In 1933, he pointed out that detecting such a particle would be a very difficult task. Thus, the neutrino was not experimentally discovered until 1956. Here is what the Urantia book says in several places. Chapter 41, In Large Suns, when hydrogen is exhausted and gravity contraction ensues, a sudden collapse occurs. The gravity-electric changes give origin to vast quantities of tiny particles devoid of electric potential, and such particles readily escape from the solar interior. Section 42, when atoms perform radioactively, they emit far more energy than would be expected. This excess of radiation is derived from the breaking up of the mesotron energy carrier, which thereby becomes a mere electron. The mesotronic disintegration is also accompanied by the emission of certain small uncharged particles. The text with tiny uncharged particles closely resembles the description of neutrinos. It's possible that the author of the book already had this information as a theoretical idea from Wolfgang Pauli. For a long time, it was believed that neutrinos had no mass. However, according to the book, these particles have a very small mass. This is quite a remarkable prediction. It was only in 1998 when scientists confirmed neutrinos indeed have a tiny mass. But let's shift our focus from science and examine the historical events described in this book. The most astonishing aspect of the text is its remarkably detailed account of the life of Jesus Christ. So detailed, in fact, that it specifies many events with exact days of the week. Here's one example with a fragment of the text. Chapter 140, just before noon on Sunday, January 12, Anno Domini 27, Jesus called the apostles together for their ordination as public preachers of the gospel of the kingdom. This text provides the exact dates and corresponding days of the week according to the Julian calendar. There are approximately 100 instances in the text where specific weekdays are paired with exact dates. If the exact date of an event is known, the day of the week can be calculated and compared with the text. It turns out the dates and days of the week align very precisely. Only one correlation between a date and a day of the week was incorrect. This strongly suggests that the book was written by individuals with a solid grasp of mathematics. Performing these calculations in the 1930s would have been exceptionally tedious, particularly given the large number of dates mentioned in the book. Today, such problems are easily solved using computers. For those who think that the book was dictated by higher beings, this is yet another reason to believe in the description of the life of Jesus Christ. Another possibility is to assume that this book is a fraud. Obviously, the authors were a group of scientists. They wrote a book on spirituality, being not at all spiritual. If they believed in the meaning of the written text, then they must have understood that they were committing a sin by making up this text. Why risk their eternal souls if they truly believe in their existence? They were clearly very erudite and spent, presumably, a lot of time on large, monotonous calculations without a computer. They were not insane. They wrote 2,000 pages of very complex text. For what? Fame? Or money? This is unlikely, as the book itself is distributed for free, and the authors' names are not disclosed. It's up to you to decide what this book means. The truth often lies somewhere in the middle. Perhaps a patient of psychiatrist Sadler could have said a lot of this information under hypnosis, which seemed mysterious and intriguing to Sadler. This information was documented. Then these records inspired other scientifically minded people who supplemented the themes of Sadler's patient's thought fragments. It is highly likely that this book contains unusual insights deserving of attention. While the text may not originate from cosmic beings, it can emerge from deep layers of intuition, drawing fragments of knowledge. It explores many fascinating predictions about the structure of the microworld and the universe. Only time will reveal whether these predictions proved accurate. However, one thing is clear. The Urantia Book holds the potential to profoundly influence the spiritual growth of our society.